All right, so it looks like we are live. Good, good, good. We're live. Good evening, everyone. It's yours truly, Dr. Barry. We are going to wait for some people to come in. We're waiting for people to come in. Thank you for joining another episode of the Ask the Internist. This is a series that it used to be Real Physician Reacts, but I like this Ask the Internist. I like being able to kind of be open with the conversation, especially if I don't have a particular topic I want to touch base on. But this week, I want to kind of center our focus specifically on medical school, medical students, especially because I got a lot who follow me. And I know a lot, especially my fourth year medical students, are being prepared to make that next jump. They're prepared to make the next jump into residency. So first of all, congratulations to all of these students who are able to have a successful match and get into a residency spot somewhere across the country. That is a difficult feat. That is something that is not just given to everyone. So I like to take the time and give the kudos because I know how hard a lot of people had to work to get there. And I'm seeing TikToks. I'm seeing y'all already getting ready for the move. I see y'all already getting ready for you buying books. You know, you got your Amazon wish list. Again, I appreciate it. So we're definitely going to be talking about that transition of going from a regular medical student to a soon-to-be resident physician, because it's a leap. It's a leap that occurs in a span of about 4 months, 3 months, depending on when you graduate. If you graduate early and when you actually start residency, because usually residency start in July. So it's a leap that occurs very quickly, and it can be very scary for a lot of people. So we're definitely going to talk about it this evening. Again, for those who are joining, I'm Dr. Pierre, board certified internist. This is our weekly live series, Ask the Internist, where typically we just kind of fire away a lot of general questions, because as an internal medicine physician, guess what? I can answer a lot of general medical questions because fortunately, I should say, the internist knows a lot about a lot of things. We may not know into depth, but we know a lot of surface level things. So we're usually able to answer a lot of questions from that perspective. And today I just want to touch base on the medical student and more importantly, medical school. Why? Because I used to be a former medical student, but more importantly, I used to also be a former program director, right? So I used to be a part of the decision making who said, hey, you know what? This medical student is someone that I want to see in my program. Like this is a person I can see. In fact, I used to have questions for those who especially I'm not sure if I have many. Yeah, I think I have a couple residents who follow me. They know that one of my questions always used to be like, why should you be a part of the six? At that time, we had 6 residents. Tell me why you should be a part of the 6 members of our resident class, right? Which is always a good open-ended question, because it starts making them think. It's not asking them about like how well they did in organic chemistry or how well they did with this course. It's just basically saying, hey, why do you think you should be a part of this class? And I wish I could say all the time I got a great answer, but sometimes that used to fluster students. It used to really fluster them because I guess they weren't used to not having to answer some generic question about their strengths and their weaknesses, which typically occurs, right? They're like, oh, what is your strength? What is your weakness? That's one of those saying, Siri trying to talk to us. That's one of those questions that especially the bad interviewers always will ask because they don't really have no questions to ask. But like me, I'm very great with the open-ended questions. I love open-ended questions because I just want to see how you're going to be able to postulate it, right? So for those who may not be aware of the process, so this process of going from medical student, especially fourth year medical student, onto residency. If you were on TikTok in the past month or so, you saw a lot of Match Day 23 TikToks, right? Or if you're on Twitter, it was everywhere. Every social media platform, Instagram too. There was a video talking about Match Day and the importance of Match Day and whether a person matched. And we saw some videos where people didn't match, right? And we can talk about both of those this evening. So we have this process when we are kind of deciding, hey, I want to go to, let's say John Hopkins. I'm just shooting out a name of a hospital. And I want to be a part of their residency program. One, I got to choose what specialty, what field I want to do. Again, if they're lucky, they want to be an internist like yourself, because again, I think I'm biased, but I think internists are like the best specialty. Again, don't shoot the messenger here. I am telling you I am biased. So that way no one comes at me saying, no, pediatrics or OB-GYN or general surgery. I don't want to hear it, because if you ask me, the internal medicine specialty is the best specialty. But again, not here or there. So you have medical students who decide, usually within their third year of medical school, hey, I want to be blank for the rest of my life. Whether it be I'm be a pediatrician, I'm gonna be an obstetrician, I'm gonna be a surgeon, neurosurgeon, thoracic. Like, I want to be something for the rest of my life. And they usually have to choose that the third year they're in medical school, which I think is kind of wild, if you ask me. Because if you ask me, hey, this goal that I've been striving, because a lot of us just have a goal of just becoming a doctor. And it takes forever in a day, just become a doctor. And within about 2.5 years, again, but usually by the third, you kind of know, within 2.5 years, you have to kind of decide, hey, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Because everything is kind of future planning. So as we speak, we have third year medical students sending out emails across the country saying, hey, I want to be a part of your program. I'm interested in your program. Can I do a rotation, which is like an audition at your program? Like, that's happening as we speak. And it's a cycle that happens every single year. So you get to this point where, hey, you decide, hey, I got these list of schools and I've done, I did my auditions, I've done my interviews, hopefully, and I have a list of schools that I want to go to. So then you go to this computer system and you say, hey, this is the list of schools I want to go to. Then you have to wait for those programs to be like, hey, these are a list of the future residents that I would not mind taking. Boom. And then from some weird, funky computer system matching process, if hospital A says, I like resident A, guess what? They're a match. They're a match made in heaven. Boom. They're on the way. And because you saw a lot of people, which happens every year. I don't want to call out my medical students. I don't want to do that right now. But every single year, the amount of videos that I see, people say they got into their first choice. Like, first of all, the odds of that are extremely low. It just is. Let's be honest. The odds that all of y'all got into your first choice is comical, right? So, but again, we let them rock with it because, hey, it's their day. We're not going to steal no joy. But in the back of my mind, I know, hey, the likelihood that all of y'all got in y'all first option is not it. It's just like, let's be for real. And what's funny is because then when you do see the honest students who are like, this wasn't my first choice, like, that seems more relatable to me because, like, I can tell, like, okay, you can tell this wasn't this person's first choice. But when you got a majority of your timeline saying they all got into their first spot, again, I'm not here to call them liars. I'm just saying that the numbers typically don't, like, all of y'all not getting in y'all first spot. Like, it just is what it is. All of y'all are not getting in your first spot. But let's say, boom, you get in your spot. Now the decision becomes like, all right, now I got to take off the medical student brain because they have a medical student brain. Because let me show you what occurs from a timeline perspective. You find out in like March that, hey, I'm going to be in so-and-so program. But a lot of them still have like 3 to 4 months of schooling still left. And when I tell you as an attending physician, the worst medical student to have is one who's just matched. Like, especially if it's not your specialty, that's a double burn. If you have a medical student who just matched doing your rotation and what they matched in has nothing to do with your specialty, you might, obviously they're there because they got to be there, they got to get the grades, but it's draining. It is draining. And again, like I said, I ain't mad at them because I was right there too. I remember when I was a fourth year student, I got my email match because I'm older, right? So there wasn't this like whole, because I'm an osteopathic physician, so there wasn't this big wait till Friday and then everyone finds out on Friday. Like, nah, on Monday, hey, you match. This is where you matched at. Very anticlimactic. So I find out on Monday, boom, I matched. So now, for the next 2 to 3 months, I think I was on ICU. So ICU was okay because I knew I had to work on ICU. That wasn't a big issue. But then I think I might have been doing like ER and maybe like geriatrics, something that I was just like, okay, I am so mentally checked out that even when they used to give us homework, I'm like, oh man, I just need a passing grade. I just need to make sure I do not fail this test. Like, that's all I need to do. Like, all the other stuff is cool. I just need to make sure I do not fail this test because usually we had like a shelf exam by the end of the month. So again, like I said, the worst medical student to have is one who just passed. So again, you pass, right? You get ready. You're mentally trying to prepare yourself for what residency is going to be like. And despite my advice to my medical student mentees every single time, like, hey, relax. Hey, don't go out there and try to read, a whole bunch of books and learn, because regardless of whatever you read, it ain't going to be like it when you're the actual doctor. They don't listen to me, right? Again, I understand because when I was in that position, I did not listen to someone telling me, hey, Barry, you might just want to chill. Like, you're about to go into internal medicine. Whatever you think you're reading, you're going to have to read it times 10, and you're going to have to know it to the fullest level. Because residency is such a weird dynamic. Medical school is a weird dynamic in and of itself. So you go from being a medical student, 1 month, right? Let's say month of June, or let's say month of April. Month of April, I'm a medical student. The month of July, I'm a medical resident. And the second July 1st hits, you have people, one, calling you doctor, right? Which is, amazing, right? Like, oh my God, I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. Like, I remember I used to be the same way. I couldn't wait till they called me doctor. And that first month, I was like, oh my God, they're going to call me again. Like, I almost got petrified every time they said Dr. Pierre. I was petrified because now you are a resident physician. So now all of your colleagues, especially your senior residents, are expecting you to know something. So they're not asking, and they're not talking to you as if like you like, all right, you were just a medical student a couple months ago. They're like, no, like CHF, how do you treat, right? So the backwards process of how we have to learn is so weird because we automatically have to like go full running, which is why I tell my pre-meds like, hey, like, don't waste your time reading during the summer and all that other stuff there. I promise you, one, you're not going to retain it. And two, whatever you think you know, your seniors are going to make sure they ask you the opposite question. Like, you might know every question on page 1, and your seniors are going to recognize you know everything on page 1, and they're going to ask you all questions from page 2. Because it doesn't matter what you know on page 1. It's like, oh, cool, you know page 1? That's cool. What's going on with page 2? So, like, just that mindset alone is a significant shift for a lot of students, right? And it's usually what trips them up. When I think about just what you have to know and what you have to learn, it's almost like a fire hydrant, right? Like, when it's open, it just goes, and then it goes for however long your residency is, whether it be 3 years, whether it be 5 years, 7, depending on, especially my neurosurgeons, I think they do 8. However long that is, it just keeps on going. And again, and it sounds scary. It definitely sounds scary. And I'm not here to, especially for my 4th years or, those who match, right? I'm not here to scare you. I'm just here to kind of let you know, like, hey, I want you to relax right now. Like, yes, I want you to enjoy your match, that high from the match. I want you to, start picking out your apartments. I want you to start doing all of those things there. But I also want you to relax because once you step foot on that floor, once you're like no longer medical students, blah, 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 and you're Dr. Pierre, and the nurse is paging you overhead because they need a diet order, and you're terrified to even feed your patient, like, then it's a different ballgame. Different ballgame. Oh, that's what's going on, sir. This is like my brother. That's my brother from another mother over there. So that's why it's so important, right? To understand that the transition will happen, it will occur, but just do it at your own pace. Just do it at your own pace. Again, I am out of residency. I finished residency in 2014. So next year will make 10 years since I've been out of residency. And I'm still constantly having to learn new stuff. Like, I wish I could tell you everything I learned that I needed to learn. It happened during my residency, but I'd be a liar, right? And, on this channel, we don't like to lie. I'd be an absolute liar if I told you everything I needed to know I knew once I got a residency. Nah, like, the learning just continues to build and grow. What you have to do, especially when you're making that transition from a medical student to a resident or physician, wherever, is just understand that, hey, I'm not going to know everything that I need to know when on day one and on the last day. It's just gonna happen. I just have to be able to be okay with that. I have to be able to understand, okay, yeah, like, I'm just not there yet. But what I typically see, what happens and what trips up a lot of my first year residents, right? The first year residents is one that they have this immense level of fear to do anything. What you're afforded to do as a medical student is you're afforded to ask a lot of questions, but not have to take much action. So as a medical student, you can ask questions left and right. You can ask all the questions you want. And then someone else has to kind of take action based on the questions you ask. But as a medical resident, I keep saying medical resident because I just, fixing my brain. But just as a resident physician, you are going to be forced to take action. You're going to be forced to take action quickly, and it's going to be, we hate to say it, life or death situation. It's a life or death situation. Now, of course, obviously, you have seniors there. They're there to protect you. Your attending physicians are there to protect you. But they can't hold your hand. And the difficult transition that I see that happens with a lot of resident physicians is that they want their hand held the whole time. And that's just the reality just isn't there for that to occur. Like I wish it was. It's just not there for that to occur. Like, eventually you are going to have to go into the pool and start swimming. Eventually you are going to have to go and say, hey, this is my patient and this is what I want to do for my patient. Like, that's when you know your PGY1, who's a first year resident. That's what we call PGY1s. That's when you know your first year resident has turned the corner, is that they start taking ownership in everything they do. More importantly, they start taking ownership with their patients. Because when they first start out, it's always, hey, what do you want me to do with the patient? Hey, doc, what do you want me to do with your patient? Everything is trying to push off to say, hey, like, this is your patient, but I'm just here to kind of assist. They turn that corner when everything starts becoming, hey, like, this is what I want to do for my patient. My patient presented this way, and because they presented this way, this is what I ordered. Like, everything starts becoming extremely personal with them, which is what I love. Like, I love seeing that transition because, most of the time, the residents don't even realize it. Most of the time, the residents don't even realize that their manner of speaking has changed. They don't even realize that they're standing up a little bit taller. They don't even realize that they're confident when they're telling me to plan. Like, it's something that just kind of happens, but it's so amazing as an attending physician to see that transition occur. Now, when does this transition occur? It's different for everyone. We all know wherever you go, you're going to have some of your PGY1s. They're going to be rock stars. They're going to be ones who read everything, and they're gonna be rock stars. They're gonna be taking test bank after test bank, so they're gonna be rock stars, right? And they may learn things a lot quicker. And I'm not saying that that's literally the recipe for it, because it's just not. Because I know a lot of physicians who are really book smart, right? They read articles all day. They are constantly doing, especially residents, doing MCSAP related questions. And again, MCSAP is just internal medicine, but just doing test bank related questions. And then I just know a lot of people who spend more time in the caring department. So they care for their patients. They go the extra mile for the patients. They'll do the extra reading for the patients. It becomes very easy to start seeing the residents who are separating themselves from everyone else. Because you can go through residency and just kind of be going through the motions. You can do that. Like, you can go through residency kind of going through the motions and just saying, hey, you know what, I'm just going to take care of my patients. I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out. But the ones who say, nah, I'm going to take ownership of my patients, my patient care. I want to be the best that I can be, and I'm going to read more. I may have to stay a little bit later. I may have to come a little earlier. Initially, it may not seem like that's making a big difference until you look up at the end of the year and you start realizing that, like, oh, I've made the separation that I needed to make. Right. Like, so that, again, it's just a beautiful thing as far as, that transition when you go from medical student to resident. And it's something that I love seeing, right? Especially because, again, I have, let me see, I have about, oh my God, six. So about 20, because I was a program director for about 4 years. So I got about 24 attending physicians that I personally oversaw. And it's just amazing to look afar and just see oh yeah. Like, I remember I taught them that. Like, again, I don't take personal credit, right? But when I say I taught them that, the program. But it's just amazing to see them do such amazing things, especially because I remember when they were sitting in front of me during interviews. Like, I remember when they were petrified when I would ask them the questions during the interviews. I remember when they did get accepted and they were petrified when they had to see their first patient, when they had to, run their first code and had to do a lot of first during residency. So because I remember that, it's such a beautiful thing to see them at a different level. Like, whatever that level is, it's just amazing to see them at that different level. So I'm always a big fan of, I've always been a big fan of just medical students in general, because I know how hard, I just know how hard it is to get people to do that, right? To say, hey, I want to be a pre-med student, and the work it takes to be a pre-med student. And then if you're fortunate and you're lucky and you work hard and you can become a medical student, and then you got to do the whole process over again, which I don't think a lot of people realize that, it happens twice. Like, I do a lot of work just to get into medical students. Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate it. And then you have to do a lot more work again when you're a competent medical student to say, hey, I want to get into a residency program. All right, boom. I got to do this whole process all over again. So you'll have, the interview process. You'll have all of these things that occur multiple times in an attending physician's career before they get to the point where they're just an attending physician. Like, again, next year, I'll be 10 years out as an attending physician, which is still so wild to think about. I was talking to my co-residents last week about it, because what happens is we usually have to take board exams every 10 years. So one of my residents just reached out to us and said, hey, do we know? Because right now there's a little battle on, are we going to have to take it or not? Like, that's a fight that's been happening pretty much since I got out of residency, now that I think about it. Yeah, this is a fight that's been happening for that long. And obviously we've been crossing our fingers because we don't necessarily want to have to sit for a whole nother board exam, especially when a lot of our licenses make us do all of these tests and all of these conferences and all of these CME related stuff that why doesn't that count for it, right? So again, we're crossing our fingers that in 2024, I won't have to sit for another board exam, because it's just annoying. It's not like it's difficult. It's just that I'd have to kind of put back on my residency hat. I'd have to download a couple test banks and answer. It's just something that if I can avoid it, I will, right? That's just the reality, right? Like, if I can avoid, having to take another board exam, because again, we take so many, I definitely would. Yeah. So I want to, that's just kind of my discussion on just the transition of getting from the medical student in, being your first year resident. But I want to, what I'll start doing, especially probably over the next month or so, is I'll probably, and for those who may know, especially if you catch this late, I also post this video on our YouTube channel. I don't post all my lives on the YouTube channel, but usually the live I do on Thursdays, I post on our YouTube channel. So this live will go on the YouTube channels, usually around 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. So check that out. And if you are a podcast listener, if you like listening to podcasts, I also post the audio of this as well, right? So that's typically kind of how I go in regards to kind of the route that we kind of post our social media, right? So we typically will record it here and then we'll post it over there for you guys listening and viewing pleasure, right? So again, that's kind of just our discussion today about the medical students, medical residents. Again, feel free to check us out on our YouTube. Links in the bio. Make sure you're following me as well too. Don't forget to follow. Hit the likes. So now that that's over, right?